I was 26 when this happened. At the time, I worked in logistics for a medical supplier. Nothing exciting, mostly inventory spreadsheets and late emails from hospitals that ran on no sleep. I've always been the quiet type. Not shy exactly, but the kind of person who notices details, who listens more than talks. I traveled alone often for work, usually short flights between cities in the Midwest. This particular trip was supposed to be forgettable. A 2-day inspection at a warehouse outside Denver. The kind of trip where you pack one pair of extra shoes and hope the hotel has decent coffee. It was mid-October, already cold in places that pretended summer lasted longer than it did. My flight left just after sunset. One of those narrow-body planes with 2 seats on each side and a carpet that always smells faintly of vacuum cleaner heat and old spills. I boarded early, slipped my headphones on and tried to zone out. Nothing about that evening felt unusual. I texted my dad before takeoff, told him I'd landed when I got there, watched airport ground crews in neon vests wave flashlights under the windows. The hum of the plane was comforting even, routine, safe. Looking back, that's the scariest part of all, because when people talk about danger on airplanes, they imagine turbulence or engines failing. They never imagine the person sitting 3 feet away. I had seat 14A, window, left side. I always picked the window if I could. Something about watching the ground disappear made me feel in control, like I'd chosen height instead of it being forced on me. The middle seat was empty when I sat down. I unzipped my backpack, pulled out a book I'd already pretended to read on 3 other flights, and stuffed my jacket under the seat. Boarding was slow. Business travelers with headphones and rolling suitcases. A mum with a toddler who kept pulling the handle of her pink carry-on like it was a pet refusing to walk. A man arguing softly into his phone about timestamps and airports. Eventually, my row filled. The aisle seat was taken by a guy, maybe late 30s, early 40s, tall, thin, wearing a faded green jacket with a hood he never took off, no phone in his hands, no bag. Just sat down and stared straight ahead like the back of the seat in front of him was playing a movie only he could see. I gave the polite half-smile people give strangers they'll forget in 10 minutes. He didn't look back. During safety instructions, he didn't make a single movement. No seatbelt check, no adjusting of anything. Just still, hands resting on his thighs, fingers long and pale like he hadn't seen much sun in years. I noticed it because I'm the type who notices things, but planes are full of strange people. I put my headphones on, played an old podcast, and told myself not to be weird about it. The engines kicked on. The vibration under my feet calmed me. That deep, reassuring sound that means something big is working properly. We lifted into the dark, and that should have been the end of my story. About 20 minutes into the flight, something small happened that made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't immediately explain. I felt watched, not in a dramatic way, not heart-pounding. Just a faint pressure on my awareness, like when you realize someone in a room is facing you instead of the TV. I glanced right. The man in the aisle seat wasn't looking at the screen in front of him. He was looking at me. Not my face exactly, more like my neck. His eyes slid down when he noticed me turning, resting carefully on my book instead. Then the window. Then nothing at all. I told myself I was imagining it. A few minutes later, I shifted in my seat. The plane jolted slightly, turbulence maybe, and I reached down to grab my water bottle. When I straightened up, he was watching again. This time, He didn't look away in time. Our eyes met. His were pale, almost grey, unfocused in a way that looked artificial, like he'd practiced the expression. He smiled, not wide, not friendly, just enough to show he knew I'd seen him. Then he turned forward again like nothing happened. I tried to return to my podcast, but realized I hadn't absorbed a word. My eyes kept drifting back to the emergency exit row sign, the tiny glowing aisle lights, the smooth, sealed door to the cockpit in front of us. Little details that suddenly felt important. He didn't move for another 15 minutes, not once. Then, very slowly, he leaned closer, not touching me, not invading space, just enough to make it clear he was there. And in a voice barely louder than the engine hum, he said, "You're not in your seat." I frowned. What? He nodded at the empty middle seat. "That one's mine." I checked my boarding pass instantly, heart fluttering in irritation more than fear. "Actually, I'm 14A window." He stared at me for a long moment, then said very quietly, "No, you aren't." I pressed my call button. Hard. The overhead light went on, bright and abrupt. When the flight attendant came, I held my boarding pass out immediately. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "He says I'm in his seat." The man didn't speak, didn't move. The attendant looked down at my phone, then at the seat numbers above us. "You're in the correct seat, sir," she said gently but firmly. Then she turned to the man. "What's your row and seat?" He didn't answer. She tried again. "Sir?" He blinked like he'd just woken up in a strange place. Then he muttered something I couldn't understand. She leaned closer, confused. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" 38, he said. She froze slightly. 38 what? He swallowed. 38 letters. I felt my stomach dip in that slow, sickening way you feel in elevators that stop between floors. "Sir," she said more sharply now, "where is your boarding pass?" He didn't respond. He slowly turned his head toward me instead and whispered, "You already took it." I almost laughed, not out of humor, out of disbelief. "I don't have your boarding pass. You're sitting on it." I stood up then, instinctively, put my hands on the seat in front of me like I might fall. The passenger across the aisle had taken one earbud out, watching now. The flight attendant sighed, exasperated. "Sir, you need to move to your assigned seat or I'll have to—" He cut her off. "Do you smell that?" She paused. "Smell what?" He stared straight into my face. Burning plastic. There wasn't any smell, but suddenly my throat felt dry. She asked him to follow her toward the front of the plane. He didn't argue. He stood calmly, brushed past me in the aisle and walked away. As he did, he leaned close enough that I could feel his breath and whispered, "You should have moved." Then he was gone. I thought that was it. I really did. People get escorted off flights all the time. Weird guy, problem solved. I even smiled a little in relief and sat back down, trying to feel foolish for being shaken. 10 minutes later, the plane lights dimmed, and someone sat back down next to me. Same seat, same smell, something faint and chemical, like old electronics overheating. I turned slowly. It was him. I didn't scream. I couldn't. "How did you get back here?" I whispered. He tilted his head like he didn't expect the question. Then he slowly leaned closer and said, "She doesn't remember me." "What do you want?" I asked. "Not you," he said. "Your place." cold slid through my body. "I'm not moving," I said louder now. He smiled again, this time wider. "Everyone moves eventually." I hit the call button again. Nothing happened, no light. I pressed it again and again. Dead. The cabin felt different, quieter, heavier. People asleep, lights low, the engines louder than they'd been before. He reached into his jacket, slowly. Pulled out a folded boarding pass. He opened it and held it toward me. It had my name on it. Correct spelling, seat number, everything. Except the gate. It listed a gate that doesn't exist at my home airport. I stood. My legs were shaking so badly I almost fell into the aisle. "Get away from me." His eyes darkened. "You don't belong here anymore." I ran. I pushed past people, mumbled apologies, nearly tripped over a bag. When I looked back, he was still sitting there, watching, smiling, not following. I told the flight attendants everything, every word, every detail. They checked. There was no record of him on the plane. No passenger with his name or description, no boarding pass, no empty seat. I sat near the front of the cabin for the rest of the flight, with 2 crew members watching me, like I might fall apart at any moment. When we landed, airport security took a report. They were polite, calm, dismissive. One of them finally said what I knew they were all thinking. "Sir, are you sure it wasn't just a vivid dream?" I hadn't slept. I know that. They told me to consider stress, work fatigue, anxiety. I went back to my apartment a different person. I sit in aisle seats now. I don't sleep on planes. I don't talk to strangers, and I never ever change seats. About 6 months ago, I was cleaning out my desk. In the back of a drawer, I found a boarding pass I don't remember ever owning. My name, my seat, a gate that doesn't exist, and written on the back in shaky black ink, 38 letters left. I still don't know what it means, but I've started counting, and every few nights I smell burning plastic in my sleep.